Hi, welcome to this episode of History Hunters. I'm wondering if you had a dad who dragged you across the country to different tourist locations. I had a dad like that, but I also became that dad in 1997. Took my family across the country 3 weeks to see places like this in Grandview section of Kansas City, just south of Kansas City. This was the Truman family farmhouse. Harry Truman did some years here. Did not necessarily like farm life. He had to get up early and do a lot of manual labor chores. Of course, he went on to become president of the United States. But this farmhouse here has been restored. It is an essential part of the life and career of Harry S. Truman. Let's go see what we can find out. 100 years ago, you wouldn't have seen all this residential and commercial development around it. This was part of the 600 plus acre Truman family farm. Across the way back here are apartments, and you can't imagine the way it was back 100 years ago. Look at that quote. I thought maybe by cussing mules and plowing corn, I could overcome my shyness and amount to something. Haha, boy did he. Here's Martha Truman, Harry's mama, his grandmother, Harriet Young. And there's Harry. He was working here at that time. So Soloman and Harriet were living here. They built their first farm here in Grandview in 1867. The original home was destroyed by fire and replaced. And there's John and Martha Truman, parents of Harry S. Truman, and his brothers and sister. There's Vivian. Vivian was the younger brother of Harry Truman. He stayed here on the farm until 1911 when he moved away and got married. Here's Mary Jane Truman. She was the younger sister of Harry Truman. She helped run the farm after Harry left in 1917. He went overseas to fight in World War I. And here's Harry S. Truman, who lived here on the farm from 1906 to 1917. And he actually ran the farm after his father's death in 1914. Later became a U.S. Senator, Vice President, and President of the United States. Unfortunately, this is not open today, and I don't even think I can peek in. It looks like they got things blocking us from looking into the windows. But this is the farmhouse. It was built in 1894 by Harry Truman's maternal grandmother, Harriet Gregg, after a fire destroyed the original, and a centerpiece of a 5-acre remnant of the family's former 600-acre farm. Harry Truman worked here from 1906 to 1917, when he was 22 until he was 33. He said it was here Harry Truman got his common sense, according to his mother. Now, after his grandmother died, ownership of the property was contested by heirs, the cost of which would eventually force Martha out of the house in 1940. The president was eventually able to recover much of the property and considered it a desirable place to establish his presidential library, but that didn't happen. So Truman sold off most of the land for development in the 1950s. Just look over here, there's a shopping center that abuts the property. The surviving part of the Truman farm is now owned by the National Park Service, forming part of the Harry Truman National Historic Site. 22-year-old Harry Truman gave up his $100 a month bank salary to go to work on the family farm here in 1906. Now, the farmhouse, with no plumbing and no electricity, stood in stark contrast to the bright lights of Kansas City that he was used to. On the farm, Harry had little privacy, sharing the 7-room house with his grandmother, his parents, his sister, and his brother. Harry slept in one of the bedrooms on the second floor above the dining area with his brother Vivian and hired hands that lived here. Bedroom was reportedly like an oven in the summer and an icebox in the winter. In 1914, he wrote, quote, "It was an awful task to arise this morning in that 10-degree room." Now, Harry's day began when his father called from the foot of the stairs. Before the smell of frying bacon filled the house, Harry was up feeding the livestock and milking the cows. Then he came in to help Mama and Mary Jane cook. According to one farmhand, Harry could stir up as good a batch of biscuits as any woman. So after breakfast, Harry usually put in very long hours of physical and demanding work. In the evenings, the family would gather in the sitting room to read and talk, and sometimes play the piano. In fact, Harry, Mary Jane, and Mama played the piano. Harry Truman was a very great piano player. This is no ordinary building. It's actually the former Grandview post office. Harry Truman brought it in here to store his 1911 Stafford automobile. So good old Harry Truman actually was familiar with this. Imagine he probably locked his car up. Now this building is comprised of some metal sheathing that resembles brick, but it's actually metal. Let's see what else we can find out here. Now these stones are original to the farm. They signify the boundaries of the farm property. Check it out. Well, some of this metal is pretty old. This pipe here is falling apart, and this actually looks like a gate that was here. Imagine Harry Truman ran the tractor through here. Looks like this is where the gate pivoted on here. The fence swung in this direction. Farmhouse over there. There's some more over here. This is also part of the family farm. Not sure why it's in such disrepair, but it is. But it's got some grassy area here that shows how it may have looked back in the day, 100 years ago. Now there was a barn out here as well. Now this is not original, it's reconstructed, but it's the smokehouse. It was something that they had to use to smoke the meat to preserve it because they didn't have large refrigeration units. They maybe had icebox inside the house. But yeah, this is also reconstructed for tourist purposes. The president spent time out here on the lawn in the 1950s with his brother. I have a picture of that. And he was considering using the farmer farm for his presidential library. I guess the decision was to go somewhere else. Went to Independence, Missouri. And I'm not sure if this is also original, but it appears to be a work shed or a chicken coop. I still can't get over the fact that there's a shopping center next to a historic site like this, but that's partly due to Harry's selling this property. A work area, possibly a chicken coop. I think it probably is a chicken coop. But you all know what that is for. They didn't go to the bathroom inside the house back then, so they had to come outside and use the privy. I'm going to peek in here and see if it's a real one. I suspect that it's reconstructed though. There's some holes in the backside to make it look like an outhouse, but I'm pretty sure that Harry did not come out here to do his business when he was young. I mean, that original probably fell apart. They've done a really beautiful job restoring this house because in the 1930s and 40s, I understand it was in shambles. Now, also, if you notice right there behind the back step is the pump that they used to get their water from, and I also have some pictures of Grandma using that out here back when it was a farm. Now, despite the fact that there's 3 chimneys in that house, 3 fireplaces, Harry Truman was never kept warm in the wintertime. I mean, it gets really cold here in Missouri for sure. So flying across the country yesterday from California, you look down and you see all the farmland. America is vastly still a farming country, and it requires so much hard work, and Harry Truman certainly learned that.
Small farmer in any country is the source of all freedom in that country. The farmers of the United States have always been for free government. They always will be. They know what it means to be independent. And a man who's independent knows what he wants and what he has to have to make his independence perfect. And so I'm always in favor of the small farmer.
think at one point he decided he did not want to be a farmer. It was just really tough work. He became one of the most important presidents in the 20th century. If you think about what he did, he ended World War II with the dropping of 2 atomic bombs. Very controversial move on his part that killed hundreds of thousands of Japanese citizens. So as the afternoon wears on, I feel kind of exhausted for all the videotaping I've done today in this heat. Again, I'm not used to this kind of heat. Missouri in July is not a pleasant place, but I'm curious, if you enjoyed this video, does this farmhouse remind you of anything in your family's past? Did your grandparents live in anything like this? Do you live anything like this today? And we just flew in yesterday from California. You just notice how much of America is still farmland and how much of the good people come from farms. I think of Harry Truman. He had a lot of common sense, and he said it like it was. He didn't play around in politics. If Harry Truman was against something, he said it. If he was determined to do something, he would do it. It's probably because of the farming instincts that he learned here on this farm. I'd love to hear your comment. If you could give us a thumbs up as well, I would appreciate it.